fine. Have confidence. Be strong. Be brave. And be open-minded.
Good afternoon or good evening, Commonwealth. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our very first edition of Off the Hill. I am your moderator, Marissa Flores, and I am so honored to bring to you our delegate to the United States.
I am
Ms.
so excited to be
King-Hinds.
here, and congratulations Off the Hill with Marissa Flores. Unplugged 2, CNMI Unplugged.
Unplugged. I don't know anything.
I don't
goes
know.
right now.
I don't know. I'm kind of scared.
Don't be scared. We're trying to just, at least have a conversation with you. But
Yeah.
I think what's really important, Kim, is the conversation with our Commonwealth. And they want to know what's going on, and that's why the show is called Unplugged.
Yeah.
Because it's raw, it's real, and we're taking on the issues, and we're going to talk about the things that are very difficult to talk about. But before we do that, I guess, what's the difference between, the politics in the United States and the politics here?
Man, it's crazy different, right? Because, and I think, what has been happening over the course of our existence is certain people trying to fit us into the American political landscape framework, right? And, what's very clear to me is that this community has certain very clear values,
Right.
certain beliefs, right? And I'll give you a very, very good example.
Give it to us, girl.
Man, so people have been haranguing me, you know what I
Right?
mean?
Yeah.
Private messaging me about we're so disappointed in you because you're not coming out and clapping back on the move to remove
National
DEI.
issues, right?
Right.
Right.
National issues,
Right.
but I'm gonna use the DEI stuff. Right?
Okay.
I'm like, first of all, Par, we don't have a DEI issue. We have a F50, friends and family and PARS problem. You know what
And
I
an
mean? It's not a
FAC
DEI.
issue, we got a FAC issue, girl.
Yeah, But the fact is, right, is a lot of these issues that are problematic on the mainland is not our issue, right? And so with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, in terms of, some of those funding that is supposed to work to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's not our problem, man. Have we looked around? Have you looked in the mirror? We're
Pretty diverse over here.
Yeah.
We've been diverse, actually.
Super incredibly diverse, right? All you got to do is go to a party, okay?
Right.
Because I think our party is a representation, like our actual fiestas,
Right,
parties,
right,
gatherings, right?
right.
You go to the table, you have sashimi, you got sushi, you got tempura, you got
Japchae.
lumpia, you got japchae, right?
Right.
I just hope that people, chamorros, don't be messing up those damn japchaes by adding some Kool-Aid up in that bitch, because, we try to chamorro-size the stuff, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, it don't mix, man.
come on,
It doesn't
man,
mix.
some things, right, should be off limits. But so you see basically, right, just the ethnic representation in our food, in our diet, and also, right, the years of colonization. Right. The only thing that's not reflected on our party tables is German food. But you know what? We got Jude motherfucking Hofschneider. That is a gift from the Germans.
Oh my God. You know what? I used to work for that man, and I tell you, I was like, what did I get myself into? I've never met a man that was so stern, right?
Yeah.
But my very first experience was in Tinian, and I was a chairperson for the Didi Council. And one of his brothers also had a son who had special needs. And so I'm advocating for this inclusion and this mainstream for education, get them in there. And his brother, God rest his soul, I believe he passed away. And he stood up and he goes, you're just there because it's your daughter. You don't help us. And I'm thinking, oh my God, who is this man? Yeah. I had to remove myself from the podium. I went out and I was crying.
Yeah.
And I met Jude and he goes, that's okay. Don't worry about him. He's my brother. I'm thinking, well, damn it, go set it straight. What the hell? I'm not here to And then I ended up working for the man. And I thought, it's just his personality. Yeah. But, again, like you said.
Jude is aggressive, right?
But I love that about him.
Yeah.
Take no shit.
Yeah. I think, everybody's trying, right? And, but. going back to the national politics. I mean, there's a lot of things in terms of issues that don't necessarily apply here, right? And I'll give you a couple of other examples. I sit in these committees, and, you go through these hearings, and, they're talking about amending or changing rules and regulations, laws that aren't necessarily applicable to here, right? And so, I'm constantly looking for ways to interject our issues into these larger conversations, right? But the other part of it, man, is honest to God, Brett. So, I'm not going to say which committee, okay? But, 2:00 in the afternoon, we're having like a committee thing. And this is in the house. And I walk in, and the first thing I see is wine and beer.
You're kidding.
And I'm like, bruh, if this is a CNMI, you'll be impeached tomorrow.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't even know.
For real. Like, that would never happen out here, right? But it does happen, and a lot of it basically, right, is just, when you get to the national level, the work never ends, right? And people find opportunities to be able to relax and just have, a conversation like we're having now, right? Where we're not, you know what I mean, stiff, right? And we can actually talk about our feelings, and sometimes, I guess, a little bit of libation goes a long way. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So then, I guess, for us, and we've been having these discussions, I mean, even under the coconut tree at the beach, right? How do we kind of help navigate this conversation? Because we always ask ourselves, well, how much do they know about us? Really?
Man.
How much? Because this covenant has been around for such a long time, but yet we just keep having the same conversations over and over and over again.
Nobody knows, bro.
Oh my God.
And that's kind of like the problem, right? I'm like, the covenant, they're like, cover what? And,
Cover up.
Yeah, so I think what has been happening over the course of maybe just this last, actually, I think ever since the beginning, right, is a lot of the things that they know about is what they read in the media, right?
Gosh.
And when all you read about the Marianas is from the media, right? A lot of times what's being put out there does not paint a positive picture, right? I'm constantly, correcting people that we are not the Marinara or the Marina Islands. And so how the hell you think they're going to know about the covenant if they're still calling us the Marinara and the Marina Islands, right?
Well, yeah,
And so, and so if you've been watching the hearings, I'm Kim from the Northern Mariana Islands, right?
Start with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah. Man, I mean, it got to the point, right, where like, should I do a TikTok or like an infomercial to help my colleagues learn how to say Mariana, right?
So does that explain the Sanahi and all that other stuff that you're giving them? It's not a sign of breaking bread, but I kind of like this education, like
Pretty much,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
That's literally right, like just putting just trying to get them to see, that we are a very unique people, right? We do have two indigenous cultures who are off these lands, and then you also have all these different ethnic enclaves who comprise of the Marianas, right? And just trying to get them to understand that, what works there doesn't work here. And, the one thing that I keep hearing, even amongst themselves, right, is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. And I feel like I'm going insane, constantly saying Marina, not Marina.
Oh boy.
Not Marinara. It's the Mariana.
I can't help but laugh, but
Yeah.
at the same time,
It's hilarious, man. It's painful. It's painstaking, right?
And I can't. We sit here every day. We have these conversations. We defend the covenant. We defend the Commonwealth, and yet you have,
They have no idea what the hell the covenant is. I mean, okay, let's be honest though.
You just got
Let's be honest though.
Okay.
How many people here in the CNMI actually know what the hell is in the covenant, and how many people have actually been tracking, other than those who have been engaged in policy making and who are now becoming more in tune because of all this military expansion in our area, right? And trying to ascertain what our rights are within that document. But frankly, we ourselves have slept on some of these rights, and we have let a lot of things go. And you know, we haven't been vocal about what the agreement stands for, what it means, and where and how we could use that agreement to be a vehicle to be able to advance and push some of these things that we're asking for, right?
Which is sovereignty, ultimately, at the end of the day, right? To self-govern. And I think that's the part where I think we're just so upset, right?
Yeah.
This community, this Commonwealth is upset because we continue to have the same conversations. And I really hate to say it, but we've become a welfare state.
Girl, you ain't lying. You ain't lying. You know what I mean?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
You know?
And at the rate we're going, shit, Rego just closed down.
Yes.
Another major hotelier is talking about closing down for a month, right? But like, we know how that shit works. Temporary, permanent. Right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because people need to stop the bleeding, right?
Yeah.
Two other hotels are gonna follow. You know, are talking about the same thing. One very old restaurant that everybody loves here in the CNMI is talking about the same thing.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? So.
And you know what's? I mean, maybe it looks bad on me because I'm not having those conversations with these businesses that are closing. But the fact that you're having that and bringing that to the table, you know, it makes me feel like I'm a little detached, right? Maybe I'm a little bit more focused on other agendas like, you know, criminal reform, right? Stuff like that, bail mods. But maybe we need to be more focused. What has that been like for you when you're coming back here, having these conversations with the business community and just with the common Joe? I mean,
Man, I think I've just this trip, one of my staffers was like, I think you've had 40 meetings so far, right? And you know, the morning starts, obviously I gotta go take my mental health chill, do my little run, and then get into the office, and then the day just starts, right? And you know, the meetings are packed and condensed, 30 minutes, right? So it's a revolving door. And right now, I don't, you know, I'm a cross between a mental health counselor.
wow.
Right? Because people are looking for hope. People are stressed out. There's a lot of people who are talking about what are they going to do as small businesses about these federal loans they've taken out. They're stressed out about their ability to service that loan and what that would look like if they were just to default.
Right.
Right? And then you have organizations who are completely reliant on federal funds, and you know, with what's happening in Washington, D.C., there's a lot of, you know, cloud of uncertainty. And then, you know, you have folks who are foregoing outright federal funding opportunities because the CNMI does not have the 10% match. So we're giving up a $600,000 grant because we can't cough up $60,000.
Okay, right. And so with that said, right, this narrative, we're talking about this dependence, this welfare.
Yeah.
So what is this now? Because the optics, right, and what's been kind of conveyed to us is military.
Yeah.
But we know that the only thing that's been keeping the Commonwealth alive in all the 3 islands, everywhere, is tourism.
Yeah.
And we know that Annex 6 has been on the table. We know that cabotage has been on the table. And, you know, talk to me about national security. If this was really such a big deal, right? Because I guess, like you said, you go into committee meetings and there's wine and all this stuff, and that's not conveyed, right? But when you watch the news, it's all about, well, you know, it's national security. And we have actually soaked that up.
Right. So, okay. So as a member of Congress, okay, you get the full briefing at a very high level.
Right.
And, you know, you're not going to get a briefing with a room full of people in an open space. You're actually going to be brought down into what's called a skiff. And you can't bring your phone. And if you have an ear pod in your pocket, they will like
Confiscate that. Yeah.
well, they have technology that will recognize that you, and unbeknownst to you, because you forgot that you have your whatever, right?
Wow.
Your Apple Watch. You can't have any technology because that's what national security briefings are like. Okay, and what I can say is that the biggest national security threat is for the CNMI is an economic collapse.
Right.
Because what does that look like for our partners across the region when we are an American jurisdiction who has economically collapsed at a time when we're trying to convince other island nations to stand in solidarity, in terms of this geopolitical tension, right? So I think, right, there is misrepresentation of what's actually going on in terms of these conversations, all right? Because even in Congress, there's a clear differentiation between trade and an actual national security threat.
Right.
And tourism is trade, okay? It's a commercial activity, right? If it's a national security threat, then why are we still seeing, why do we, girl, you know how many bases there are in Hawaii?
I'm at
You
this
know what I
point where
mean?
I'm like, pay me $1 billion, I'll be more than happy to leave and buy my own island in the Philippines at this
God
point.
damn.
Really,
You
honestly.
can't leave the CNMI.
Well, geez, we can't seem to figure it out here. And, I'm having mental health.
Hey, listen, I think we can figure it out, is the point, right?
Okay.
But we all have to be very clear on what it is that we're working towards. And the fact is that tourism is our primary industry. And, this notion that we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And basically say that what we're doing is trying to reduce reliance on the China market. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I can agree. I can agree with that. I can agree with that statement. But also for the government to do nothing about opening up all markets to bring and put food on people's
Right.
tables. That's the shit that pisses me off, right?
Pay this 10%
Yeah.
matching.
Hell yeah, right? and you sit in a body that's about to deliberate on the budget.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how the hell, like the math. The math, right? We'll talk about that math.
Okay, right
We'll talk
on.
about that math.
So we'll leave this up to Brad. Brad, please take us into a commercial, and we'll come back after the commercial break.
Got Medicaid? Paradise Dental's got you covered. We've got you covered from the moment you walk in the door with some of Saipan's best smiles. Medicaid covers your fillings, your extractions, and your checkups with no out-of-pocket expense. And Medicaid covers all of your x-rays without any additional cost to you. So remember, if you've got Medicaid, you're covered. Don't wait for a toothache. Call Paradise Dental today. Come here often.
Hey, I'm Coach Derek Cutting, the owner and founder of Laddie Built Fitness. So no matter who you talk to here at Laddie Built, everyone feels that they are part of a family, part of a group of like-minded people. No one feels judged. No one feels like they're being teased or picked on or looked down upon because maybe they don't know what they're doing. They could be brand new and have no idea what they're doing. They might be overweight or really skinny and feel very self-conscious about themselves. But at Laddie Built, nobody judges here. And if you ask anybody here that might be in better shape than you or even not, but has experience in the gym, they will gladly help you through a workout and teach you a few techniques that can help you. So Laddie Built organically from day one, since the boot camp era, has organically grown this fostered environment of community and being a safe place, but a strong work ethic community of people that want to get work done. All I can say is that I put my heart and soul into it from day one. I treated everyone like that at the boot camp from the very, very beginnings, and everyone at the same time would treat each other like that from the boot camp era as well. And as we grew, as we got into a brick and mortar facility, we got bigger and bigger. I feel like people definitely just take this place as a home, as like their brother and sisters are working out next to them, not their enemy or not their competitor, So organically, it's just the vibe here is different. Everyone feels very, very comfortable, and I love the fact that it happened like that.
fine. Have confidence. Be strong. Be brave. And be open-minded.
So before the break, Kim, we were talking about, can I call you Kim, or do you want
Hell
me to
yeah.
call you, Congresswoman?
No.
Delegate?
Doll, please.
Doll. I hate that. I hate when people call me doll. But before the break, we were talking about the budget. So please continue.
Well,
with what
that's
you're-
kind of like more in your wheelhouse,
Yeah.
right? But, so last, like the math is not mathing, man, right? Last fiscal year, we had to revise the budget. We took out a loan to actually make the whole fiscal year whole,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then here we are. There's another budget proposal that says we're going to increase, right? Like
do we do that?
by 20 million,
Right.
right?
Right.
Based on what?
Right.
Regal's closing down.
Mm-hmm.
Kensington's talking about shutting down for a month. Like the flights are pulling out.
Right.
So like every single economic indicator is basically showing a downhill trend, right? There's actual like the data is not supporting
Right.
basically all this anticipated revenue, right?
Yep.
And then my
right.
other concern is, girl,
Go
my
ahead,
other concern
girl.
is because you are a congresswoman, right? And I'm a constituent concerned about the budget is that
Absolutely.
we're going to float another pension obligation bond, right? Which means we're leveraging our children's future to be
Correct.
able to pay for what?
Right.
And so if you kind of add basically all our debt service together, if you were to float that pension bond, I think we're doing it because we know that we have a minimum annual payment due to the settlement fund, right?
That is correct.
And we need to make the retirees. I get it, okay? I get it, all right? But by the time all is said and done, our debt service is almost going to be about the same as what we're going to have to pay for, the minimum annual, like
It
bro.
is. And you know what? You're correct. The 24th legislature, especially in the Ways and Means Committee, even with the minority members, we talk about it like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Calling Secretary of Finance, it doesn't make sense. And I'm thinking, I refuse to go into debt anymore, period, at the end of the day. I'm still paying a debt that, I'm sorry, I can't even retire at this point because I'm paying into this retirement, or the settlement, because it's not a retirement fund anymore. But we have had these discussions, and we all are just looking at the numbers thinking, what in the world is happening? And I asked a question. I said, look, in 2023, you showed $14 million deficit. Then you showed a 14 million increase. Now we're back to 14 million. What is it with this 14 million? And I was told it was coincidence. I don't know about coincidence, but I wasn't born yesterday, right? I can balance my checkbook.
Maybe last night.
That is even worse, sis. Oh, God. But it worries us because, a lot of us are going to inherit this debt. And that's what really upsets me and pisses me off because I'm thinking, screw you, man. I'm not about to go into another debt to pass down to the generations. There's
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
And what other way do we have? And so, they keep talking about this. I totally am 100% against. What is this?
Floating a pension bond?
That too. I'm totally against the 100% reprogramming, right?
Yeah.
And they say, well, in times of calamities, well, our Constitution says we can do that. In
Yeah.
any calamity,
You
sir,
declare-
you can do
yeah.
whatever you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
You don't need reprogramming
Yeah.
authority. But we also believe in the House that money should be placed in there and let us figure this out based on the conversations that we're having with our constituents who we serve. The executive branch has its own powers, and we can't dominate that, right? Well, we
Yeah.
have within our laws. But at the end of the day, if the executive branch, right, I'm not going to use the terms administration or governors, but when you look at the executive branch as a whole, that's too much power, sis. That's a lot of power. And
He's got the power. I'm just saying.
the executive
right?
branch, sis, has
Hey man,
a lot of power.
but let's be fair.
Yes.
Y'all gave him the power.
That is
and we're
true.
reaping, you know what I mean?
That's true.
We're reaping what we sowed, right?
And one of the discussions we're having with the community is just putting a lot of pressure on the 24th legislature. Like, where is his State of the Commonwealth address? and we don't know what to say. And I'm thinking,
Hey man, everything's good. We're gonna, we're making $20 more million next fiscal year.
oh,
You know what I
man.
mean?
Sometimes
Because who needs tourists?
Sometimes I am glad that I'm not privy to those conversations. And I think I make those personal choices because it really doesn't matter anyway. At the end of the day, I'm one vote, and it's surrounded by a bunch of, veterans who've been there a long time. And
Yeah.
I'm just kind of just like this sophomore, legislator. And I'm thinking.
Can I give you a hot take?
Sure.
I think, honestly, a lot of it is cultural, right? Like the way that we operate here in the CNMI is directly tied into our culture in terms of, respecting our elders, respecting family members. And a lot of these decisions are based on some of these familial relationships. So that's one. The other part of it, right, is that we're still living at a time where we're not thinking as one Commonwealth, given the crisis that we're in.
Correct.
We're all worried about senatorial district politics, right? Which I completely understand, because if you're coming from a Rhoda Antinian perspective, Rhoda Antinian has felt gypped this
Right.
whole time, right? And I think that comes from some of these conversations about 80-20 and all that, right? Resource allocation. So whatever, man, okay? I get it. We have a lot of deep pain, right? And amidst, these conversations, you still have folks, man, who as long as I gets mines, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm cool.
Right.
Right? As long as, Gov, can you just hire fan Manyawan, you put him in that division, you know
But
what I
that's
mean?
always
I'll
been a
support.
practice,
It's
sis.
been a practice, which
Ever
is
since.
why I'm saying it's cultural,
Right,
right?
right.
That I'm willing,
Right.
as a legislator, to forego the rest of the people because Manyao got hired at whatever salary.
Right.
And as long as I take care of mines, whatever. And I think
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
like we keep doing
the same
the
thing.
same shit
Over
and over again. And what's happening right now is that the roosters are coming home to roost, right? The sins of our fathers in terms of the manner in which we've been conducting ourselves is catching up with us.
Right.
And we're running out of rabbits to pull out a goddamn hat. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I agree. And it's the same way, right? And I think that's why, we try to have this conversation. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming, because a lot of the times you're muzzled. Women are muzzled, especially strong women in leadership roles.
Yeah.
You see that.
Yeah.
And we're saying, you got to stand up. You got
Yeah.
to say something. If it's wrong, stand up, right?
Yeah.
And
Be like
I
RB,
don't-
man. If you see something, say something. I love that guy. RB, if you're watching, I love you, RB. If you see something, say something. That should be the CNMI's new slogan.
Right?
Yeah.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
I don't know, and we're just hoping that, with this outlet, right, on this platform, we can encourage these conversations where don't be afraid, don't
Yeah.
do that, right? Because a lot of this fear has gone into this planning, like
Yeah.
you said. And how much more are we willing to sacrifice?
Yeah.
And maybe as mothers and as women, we understand that completely because there's something about the way we were designed,
Yeah.
right? And you can't explain that to someone who's more mechanical, right? They don't care about the empathy. They don't care about sympathizing. Okay, that's fine. That's you. But at the end of the day, you have a child, you have a daughter, you have a son. And I think we're not ready yet. I think it's going to take, honestly, and it's so sad, it's probably going to take another 5, maybe 10 years at the most.
Man.
And I don't know.
I'm going to tell you something, man. You ready or not,
Here we come.
ready or not, right? Like we're pretty much running out of options.
Absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
Because what are you going to do, right? For example, if more cuts come, right? And I'll give you some hot takes behind the scenes in terms of conversations that are having in Washington, D.C.
Right on.
Right? Everybody's looking basically to cut the deficit, right? And the Trump administration has put out its budget wish list, right? And they've basically tasked, I think there's around 12 committees in Congress who all kind of are looking within their wheelhouse to be able to trim some of the fat, right? And, one of the things that they want to enforce are actual rules and regulations as it pertains to grant funding, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of these grants that are conditioned on audits,
Yes.
right?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Audits. There's this thing called audits.
You know we're behind, right?
Super,
Okay.
right? And obviously, man, my job is to find a way to, like, I don't want to. So I don't want my statements to be construed as being political. I'm just being factual here.
Right, absolutely.
Because my job at the end of the day is to fight for
Right.
exemptions and to ask for waivers to ensure that we continue to get that money. But, there's going to be a time, man, where, because I've been hearing it, right, that the CNMI keeps asking for these exemptions. They've been we've been warned multiple times. Worst, we've been freaking telling the feds that we suck at our jobs and we're so corrupt. You know what I mean? Like, we've told on ourselves. We're like, hello, look at us. Look at us. You know what I mean? We're corrupt. We're corrupt. Like, that's what we've been doing for the past 2 years. And then we're going to be like, give us more federal money.
Right.
And we haven't done anything to change.
To change.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Because tell me, has something been different in terms of how we do business?
No, girl. And and I'm not gonna lie, people know. It's a fact. You
Yeah.
can't sit here and have this conversation and be unplugged, raw and real, and then say on the same breath, they don't know. But they know. And anything we say, they could either call us out on our shit and tell us we are, POSs, or they could be like, hell yeah, we're going to follow them and we're going to agree with what their sentiments are and we're going to change.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
the best that can come out of this. So, we know what's at stake.
Yeah.
At least the majority of the 24th legislature.
Man, there's a lot at stake.
There's a lot, sis. And we don't know how else to kind of have the conversation and the narrative about, this almost kind of mercy, right? Just mercy.
Hell
And
no.
I don't want to beg for that,
But here's the point, right? Like the reason why we have 3 branches.
Right.
And by the way, it's called 3 equal branches of government.
We're
No
gonna
one
go
is
there,
supposed
girl.
to have one power over the other. It's a system of check and balance, right? And I think that the legislature needs to start exercising its authority.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think what's been happening is that we've deferred. But going back to conversation number 1 about culture, right?
Yes.
And getting mine. As long as I'm getting mine, right? Forget everybody else. But we're at the point where, like, bro, we're getting to the point where ain't nobody getting nothing.
Right.
Right? Because you have that money that needs to go to pay off debt service. Well, guess what? We have this constitutional mandate of 25% going to PSS. So what are you going to do? Shortchange the kids?
Right.
Because, hello, I hate to break it to you, we're already shortchanging the kids when all the money that we are relying on our federal funds, we are not making any money to be able to avail them of any
Right.
programs and services. Thank God the pandemic happened and we're able to send our kids back and forth
Right.
to be able to have interscholastic competitions.
Right.
How sad.
That
So what are we
is.
going to do? Pray for another goddamn typhoon so that we get FEMA funds to be able to, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't even. At the
Supplant.
rate we're going, I don't even think we're going to get any FEMA funds at this point.
That's the
you said,
thing,
We're corrupt.
We're corrupt. We're corrupt. We're the worst.
We're the worst.
We're the worst people.
We don't know how to invest in our own people.
we wasted $500 million. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally the message. And it's very jarring, honest to God, because there is one congressman who literally, to my face, right? Congressman Mass, okay? This dude is a veteran, served in the military. And I went out to introduce myself. And literally, that was the first thing he said to me. And I was like, God damn.
He said that to you?
Hell yeah. You know what I mean? And
Can you
like,
imagine how embarrassed you were?
girl, I wanted to shrink into the ground, right? Because what do you say,
Yeah.
right? Because they were quoting basically, the speeches that have been coming out of the administration about corruption.
Do they really pay attention? to
Hell
what we do?
yeah. Hell
You're
yeah.
kidding.
Hell yeah.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Do they even watch like our sessions? Or
They,
just
I don't think they do
YouTube?
that, but I think what happens when you're talking about appropriations and
Yeah.
things like that, right?
pay attention.
They do pay attention,
Wow.
right?
So
Yeah.
that's yes. Oh, so we have a
Oh.
call. Oh my gosh, how exciting!
Okay, hey caller, you're on the show. Can you please state your name and your question?
Hey, Professor, This is Mr. How are you, sir?
All right.
If you can relate our questions that we're typing out online for these two elected officials.
All right, so you want us to read your question out? All right, so let's do this. We'll scroll back. They're on a roll here, so it says, can you ask these two elected officials if our EEZ of the 3 miles from each island shore, if we still need the approval of the United States to seek viable source of other investment opportunities, such as cobalt materials and natural gas, just to say a few that we can sell?
Kim?
Hey, thanks. That's a really good question, and that's a very relevant question and good timing because of President Trump's recent order with regards to what's happening down in American Samoa, right? And so what we're doing right now is doing the legal research to see what the implications are for the CNMI and to be able to look at opportunities. And if there are opportunities, I think that that's a community discussion that we need to have. Because when you're talking about mining natural resources, I think we as a community need to have an agreement that that is something that we're going to pursue and something that we're going to do. And so thank you for that question. We're on it. And as soon as we are done with that, as soon as we get back that legal review, we will be sharing with the public what the findings are, what the areas of opportunities are, and getting public feedback as to which areas that the community thinks is worthy of pursuing, right?
So in terms of so the United Nations has the Law of the Sea, right? And they've been doing deep sea mining for many, many years, about 20 years to be exact. And then American Samoa started to get into this conversation. I'm not sure if it's just for the fishing, but when you're talking about politics, there must be something hidden behind all of that. So here's my question, Kim. In terms of that, right, would it be beneficial after you get all of that stuff done, you do your research, everything's presented from your office, would it be even stronger if the Commonwealth were to, obviously unite, have the public hearings, talk about these deep sea mining, if it's something that we want to do with CRM and all of these other agencies involved, and have a joint resolution presented to you with that? Because, some people say you need a joint resolution for it to carry some weight for you.
I mean, I think it would be good. It would be helpful, right? And, here's where the rubber meets the road in terms of a lot of these conversations, right? So, everybody's like, well, you're a Republican. Trump is a Republican. You have a Republican Senate. You have a Republican House. Why are you not able to move a lot of these issues, right? Specifically Annex 6. Well, we need to have a whole of government approach, right? I cannot be the only one speaking that we want this reinstated, right? Because, Republican or not, the way that this works is the same way that it works out here, right? You have 3 equal branches of government, and the government has to chime in as to what its position is with regards to that issue. And the fact is that we haven't been on the same page in terms of messaging, right? Yeah. I think that is something that we all need to unify on and look at, right? Because there are economic opportunities
out there.
We've got another question that came in from Frank. He says, is the lack of tourism and closing of businesses something that no one, not even the governor, can have any effect to improve or change? Basically, it's the environment. It doesn't matter who's in charge.
I
think it trickles from.
Listen.
Yeah.
So I can only go on the facts, and the facts are as this: pre-pandemic, the China market was one of the fastest growing markets, right? And then obviously the pandemic happened. Part 213 order was issued by the U.S. Department of Transportation, impacting the U.S.-China air agreement, which had Annex 6, which is a provision within that agreement that exempted the CNMI from the flight frequency limitation between China and the United States. Pre-pandemic, I think the flight frequency limitation was about 150. Now it's about 50, okay? Wow. Which means, right, if we're not exempted, we are competing with markets like New York, California, right? And we're seeing these tourists go there.
Right.
We're seeing these tourists go there. We're seeing Hawaii saying, come on down,
Yeah.
fill our coffers, honey.
Yeah,
And how many bases are there,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Kaneohe, Schofield, right? Wheeler. Like, there's all these bases. I mean, like, the list goes on, right? Hell, girl. U.S. Indo-PACOM is in Hawaii.
What does
You know?
Tinian have that we, that it's such a big thing, I mean, that was
What
a
does
joke,
Tinian
but-
have? Donne, brat.
You know?
The Donni's atomic. That's what we're
Right,
guarding.
right,
That's the
exactly.
top secret.
That's the
That's
red gold.
that's the secret.
That's the red gold. And that's the conversations that the local
Yeah.
people have been having, right? It's like, why is this happening when you see other areas, including, let's just say, FSM,
Yeah.
Hawaii. I mean, FSM has its own kind of like, the way they have their politics and their rules and what have you. But when you're talking about Hawaii, like you said, they're saying to us, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why can't we have what they're having?
So
And
right now,
what is the problem with
well,
that?
so the problem
you know?
right now, let me tell you the problem. So it's capped at 50, right? Or,
Yes.
or around there.
Yes.
Well, they've maxed out the number of flights. Okay? Going from China to US. Maxed out, girl.
Oh, jeez.
Okay? Maxed out. Right? Which means that it leaves no room for us. And if you were a tourist and you had a choice between going to goddamn Disneyland and Sunroki, or you know what I mean,
There's
Japan.
Disneyland in Japan.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. By the way, fun fact,
Right.
the Chinese are the number 2, right? Growing number 2
Yes.
visitors going to Japan, but Korea being number 1, but the Chinese are outspending the Koreans almost
Really?
almost 2 to 1. Right? And as a matter of fact, a more fun fact, because that is our ally. Okay?
Yes.
They have just loosened up their immigration,
Yeah.
restrictions,
Yeah.
their visa,
Yeah.
to accommodate more Chinese tourists. Right?
Yeah.
But bruh, I think we have gold here somewhere lying.
I don't
Man,
know,
honest
man,
to God.
sis. It might be
Like
culture.
one of those like Spanish galleons where we're probably hiding gold here. I don't know. You know what I mean? Top secret stuff, right? Top secret
and then
stuff.
that's the thing, right? And so at some point, when do we say, okay, go back to the drawing board, since we don't have a plan, obviously. And everybody knows, everyone says, the entire community says to the legislature, except for the judiciary, right? We leave them alone sometimes.
Yeah.
But
We'll let you handle them later.
but the executive branch, we're saying at some point we got to stop, right? And say, look, let's go back to the drawing board. We are dying, right? We're dying.
We need to open up our markets, man. We need to open up our markets. And the fact of the matter is that is one of our markets, right? In
Would
terms
the
of
military
proximity.
be open to that, though? Has that even been presented to them?
Yes. Yes.
It has?
Yes.
When?
I have this conversation with them on a regular basis,
No
right?
kidding.
Yeah.
And they're okay with it?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what the national security concern conversations are in the States, right? Is cybersecurity issues. America is behind in terms of research and development, and China is beating us in terms of technological advancement.
Absolutely.
They're moving at a faster pace in terms of investing in their infrastructure, research and development, new technologies as it relates to,
Tech, whatever it
tech,
is. Yeah.
the technological industry,
Right,
right?
right.
And so there's this big push, to make sure that a lot of investments are put into that, which we have, been behind on, right?
A long time ago. Yeah,
The other part of
absolutely.
it, right, is just, making sure that like communications is protected, right? You know what I mean? Like, which we, all we have to do is read the news and
you can see
and
it.
listen to what's happening.
Yeah.
But those are concerns, and those are legitimate concerns. I share those same concerns, right? And that's why when you get these national security briefing, you're down in a skiff. You can't even have your phone. You can't even have an iWatch. You can't have an earpod. Why? Because people are concerned that people are going to be listening in on your conversation, stealing your information, right? Copying American technology and then basically going and developing their own, cheating,
right.
basically,
Yes,
right?
right.
This is what this conversation is all about.
Yeah.
It's not about tourists. Because if it was about tourists, right, you know.
So here's my question then, a follow-up to that real quick. We know that the EVS tap has
Yes.
been in the newspaper. And some are kind of saying, well, let's do the EVS tap first. And even some members of the community, right? And again, this might be certain gods who's talking about, you know, let's try this first. No, we don't want to do the Annex 6. And it might be a political conversation, right? And everyone's trying to kind of do what's best.
Yeah.
But the EVS tap was on discussion, and that was supported by, of course, the speaker, who's also part of the leadership in which I serve, right? So for the people that don't know what that is,
Okay,
Kim,
okay.
can you please explain that so that
Yeah.
we, the community, can be informed and support something that they're informed about?
Okay,
right?
shoot. This is good. This is
Yeah.
good because I think, you know, I've been reading quite a few letters asking for assistance with regards to this issue, and I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, right? Okay. So back in 2017, when we did have we did have 902, right? And there was concern, right, about birth tourism,
Right.
right? And the quality of tourists that we were getting through the China visa waiver
Right.
program, right? And so this was during the first Trump administration. And so the governor at the time, you know, worked with the Trump administration to add additional screening mechanism,
Mechanisms, yeah.
which is what we now call as the EVS tap. Because typically you can just hop on a plane
Right.
and fly here, right?
Right.
But what the EVS tap does basically is add an additional screening, right? That is now in place,
Okay.
right? But girl, it took like almost forever and a day for that EVS tap program to be implemented, right? Because
Right.
they had to write the rules, regulation, and so
yes.
it's been recent,
Yeah.
right? So it is in effect. And what is happening right now is that folks are going through the process and they're getting their approval is delayed.
Yeah.
Right?
Therefore, obviously having an effect. to the
Which is
tourism,
basically
yeah.
impacting
Right.
the folks that are coming in, and you do have people who have purchased seats, right?
Yes.
Meaning they didn't charter the plane, but they have guaranteed a certain number of seats,
Yes. Okay.
right? And that whether or not people actually show up to get on that plane, they're
for it.
still paying for it, right? And these seats are being paid for by our hotel industry who are already dying,
Yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So this is.
And so this is why, as a follow-up to this is, it's when there are people in this community say, oh, they can just charter. Like, bro, you know what I mean? So basically, these people are dying and you want them to give you their rib too?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these businesses are skin and bones.
Yeah.
You literally want to take out the cartilage and like just, you know what I mean?
These are huge corporate businesses.
Yeah.
sis. Many of them who've been around here a very long time.
Man, who are losing money.
Oh my! In the millions.
Millions. Yeah,
That's
in
a
the
money
millions.
figure that
Yeah.
we can absolutely say is a fact.
Yeah.
That they are losing millions, and they want to continue to invest.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like hostage. I mean,
Yeah.
everything we do here is a hostage tactic.
So this
And
is what I
it's so
suggest,
horrible.
right? Like that what the legislature can do, man. Join resolution asking, right? About like the whole of government need to be concerned and be asking these questions, because that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to schedule a meeting with Tom Holman right now, right? And Secretary Noam. And we've issued the letter. As soon as we heard that this was an issue, we responded quickly, where, we've received a response that they're working on trying to work with us, right? And so, we're following up every day. But that's literally the issue. But like, I cannot be the only one,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
The governor, the legislature, jointly
Yes.
needs to be saying that this is having an impact on our economy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But this is where we're sending the wrong message.
Yes, and that's very true, sis.
Right.
It's not matching up. Like the
Yeah.
budget need to move math.
Yeah. The math ain't mathing, man.
Mathing.
The math ain't mathing.
So I guess we're gonna have a commercial break. We're done. I'm not sure what's happening. We have our producer saying we're okay. I got Brad going thumbs up. I don't know. Me and her, we're not confused over here, but everybody else is confused on that side, just so that everyone knows. But And I think we'll just take this a little bit further. I know that, you had some time constraints, and I'll just kind of keep this dialogue going. Are there any more questions for either Kim?
Yep.
And I think this is the time we need to allot for the question portion, because we don't get Kim all the time. And when she is here, we want to be able to have her have a conversation, because there's a lot of stuff that she's privy to know and to share. And I think the community should know that, including myself, by the way.
We've got a couple. This one came in on the phone via text that says, question to Congresswoman Hinds, what's the update on Trump's stimulus? Are we on the list?
Is that early retirement for the females? Because, girl, if that's the case, I'm about to retire next year.
I think that so sometimes we see things on the social media platform that's being shared, and I chuckle to myself, man, because I'm like, oh my God, where's the stim? If there's a stimmy, I'll be the gimme, right? But I have not seen anything official with regards to any stimulus coming through. And so, the one thing that I want to underscore in this response is, man, let's make sure that when we get our information with regards to what's happening on the national level, let's make sure that we're, getting it from the right sources, right? And I think the NMI News Service does a pretty good job in the mornings of, sharing good info. And so
Thanks,
that's a
Brad.
plug
Appreciate
to my good friend Brand Rosala. You know what I mean?
And not to mention Congresswoman Delegate Hinds' newsletter.
Yes.
Subscribe, please. Any other questions, Brad, for Kim?
Yes, this one says, can you ask them what more needs to happen in order to incentivize a united approach for the executive and legislative branches?
That's a good question. Let me tell you. I'll go first.
Go ahead, sis.
I think our community literally needs to rally together, right? So that there is no confusion as to the direction that we want to go, right? You can lead the horse to water, but you can't force the horse to drink. And what we need to do is rally together. This is not just, like I honest to God, guys, I feel like a broken record, right? And I'm really grateful that I have a good working relationship with the legislature, both the House and the Senate. And it's like a tripartite party, right? Like it's not bipartisan, it's tripartisan, because you have different political coalitions, but we've been able to communicate and we've been able to work, right? And I just truly wish that we could all just rally together and say, hey man, enough. We're all hurting here. And I don't want to contribute to, this is not a fight with the governor, man. It's just a policy disagreement. It is really just a fundamental policy disagreement in terms of where we should go. And I think we should just all rally together and work towards that end.
And that's a good point, right? It's not against anybody. It's about this policy that protects all of us, right?
Yeah.
And this is about for us to thrive as a community, right? The gilded or the golden ages of garment was tried by all of us. That was a lot of money coming in and out of here. I mean, everybody was happy.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you, because, when you were running for this election, it was Level Up with Kim, which I loved, and I don't know who your marketing person was. Oh, shoot, there you go. But one of the things that they said was that you're going to kick doors down.
Yeah.
And, do you do that with your heels, or do you walk around with your shoes? Because I noticed you one time, I don't know if you jogged to your office and then changed there. I'm not sure what happens.
So it's interesting. I wear heels here, but I don't wear heels in D.C. And I'm gonna tell you this: I had to change my whole shoe game, right? Because I got places to go, people to talk to, and I got to do it quick. And I don't have time to be clacking around, man. which kind of feel what it literally sounds like when I'm walking around with my heels, clack clack.
Oh God! You know what?
Yeah.
I mean, at the legislature, you can hear me a mile away. I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, but there, you
over
can
there.
literally in half a day, if you're going out and talking to people and going from one community to the other, you can walk 10,000 steps half a day.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So are you a New Balance, a Sketcher?
So I got me
Puma.
some loafers, right? That was on clearance. Girl, if it ain't additional 25% off,
Really?
and like last 10 sale, it ain't being bought. You know what I mean?
Going to the Nordstrom rack of the rack.
Ross
of the
dress
rack?
for less, man.
Oh, there you go. That's it. That's everybody's.
Why pay more?
Right.
You know what I mean? Why pay more?
Exactly.
Why pay more?
Oh my gosh.
I'm not
So-
trying to front. I'm a brokenaire.
Right.
And that's how I introduce myself in the States. I'm Kim. I'm a brokenaire. Don't be asking me for donation. I'm just trying to make it like you.
Exactly. Somebody asked me the other day, can you support this? And I'm thinking, man, I don't know how many more, and I'm not going to use the medical, but I'm using all of these other fundraising things, right? Can you come over here, blah, blah, blah. And which brings me back, and I know that we're going to wrap this up soon, but two more things before we close out. And one of the very important ones, Kim, and I would be really remiss. We've been following you, and you have been very, very passionate, and you sit in the committee that is for the veterans, I
Yep.
believe, and you were discussing certain things about that. Can you tell us, we know we have a big, big enlistee number for the Pacific region,
Yeah.
including the Commonwealth. What are the approaches, and what are your strategies to have us at least one step closer to having this hospital here, because we
Yeah.
see all of our vets coming in, flying out, and you see the stress that I guess gives to the family, the spouses, the children.
Yeah.
Can you give us maybe an update on that?
Man, so actually, I'm really excited on a couple about a couple of legislation that I'm, signed on to be co-sponsor. One of
Nice.
which is a bill that works to, allow for access to community care.
Nice.
So right now, what's happening is the VA has, we have Dr. Ada who works with the
Yes.
VA, right?
Right.
But what we want to do basically is open it up so that vets have options,
Correct.
right? People love Dr. Ada, man, but like she's
Overwhelmed.
overworked, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to give veterans the access to be able to go to other healthcare providers, right? So I'm really excited about that. We're pushing really strong on that. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why I have to be back on Monday is there's going to be a markup coming in because we're trying to push that legislation through, right? The other thing that I'm working on, which is a personal bill, is, and like, I really love the VA committee because it's a bipartisan committee, right? And shout out to the folks behind the scenes, the staffers who make things happen. And I guess, right, like, if you hear me and start off, I'm from the remote island, blah, 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 blah,
yes.
blah, blah, where access is an issue,
Right.
right? And so, like, they're like, hey, Kim, you know what I mean? We want to have a conversation with you about how we can, as we work towards getting a CBOC, how do we provide that assistance further, bringing direct care here. And so we're looking at a concept that's very similar to Doctors Without Borders, where we're taking VA doctors and stationing them here to be able to provide certain care, whether it be mental health or other types of care, right? And so, I'm excited about that, and that would be Mariana specific because other places.
Yeah.
But aside and separate from that, what we're really pushing to do is to, rally our vets to actually register,
Okay.
right? Because there's a lot of folks, man, who just are frustrated with the entire system and just, don't want to deal with it, right? And who need the benefits, who need the care, and have kind of just given up because they don't want to deal with the very cumbersome
But
process.
Hilili has been doing that too. I mean, this was
Yeah,
years in the
it's
process
years,
of, like,
right?
data collection,
Yeah.
and sign-ins,
Yeah.
and logs, and all that.
Yeah, but we want to be a little bit more aggressive, and so one of the things that we're changing in the office is we're not going to wait for you to come. We're actually going to go and knock on, like if you don't want to come to the office, we'll come to you. We will come to you. We will come to your house. We will come to you with a computer, with a printer, and help you fill out that process, right? Because just a lot of people also have issues
Yeah.
with transportation and all
Right,
that, right? And a lot of people have other issues where they just don't want to engage, right? And so we want to be able to bring that service to the door of our community members. And one of the things that we're going to soon be doing is to get, to do more awareness with regards to what it takes to do the CBOC and getting, our vets to be able to speak to other vets.
Yeah.
And we're going to, they've agreed. I'm very happy. Project Buddy 670.
Love it.
VFW.
Project Buddy 670.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's like
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 that.
the I love those guys, man, because these are people who have served and they see that there's a great need in this community, but they're not waiting.
Yeah.
What they're doing basically is forming a nonprofit to be advocates. It's like veterans advocating
Nice.
for vets. And I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. And they're down to help with, these awareness videos and we're excited to collaborate on that project.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
know that Guam's been really active now doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's called the same thing, but they have their own advocacy and support group.
Yeah.
Taking the lead and having these conversations to aid and to help their representative
Yeah.
kind of have this, hey, help us move this
Yeah.
through. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Kalili's been doing that since forever and a day.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
So it's not for the
gosh.
lack of trying, right?
No, it's not. But
Yeah.
I get it when you say that our vets are just, it's cumbersome, it's tiring, it's exhausting. And then you're going through this whole mental health process and then you want them to do that again. It's like.
Man,
I
and the
don't even
waiting
wanna do
time
it.
for
Yeah.
some of these things, right, is very long.
Yeah. I don't, Brad's a vet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My daughter's a vet.
Well, we have a question for Rhoda if you want to take it.
Sure.
Okay. This question's coming in from Ivan Takamine Merib over there in Rhoda. He says, non-voting members serve exclusively in the House of Representatives. The Senate has no non-voting members, with the exception of the Vice President of the United States, who may vote but only to break ties, and no members representing the territories or the District of Columbia. Should the CNMI have equal representation in the U.S. Senate as a non-voting member?
More representation is always good, right? More representation is always good. The more people out there saying we're not the Marinara Islands
Right,
would
the
be
better for
awesome.
us. The better for us.
Yeah.
Maybe we should
Yeah.
start making noodles.
Yeah, I
on this
know,
side,
I
you know what I'm saying? Or even the sauce itself.
Yeah.
That might be a really good marketing thing. What kind of sauce you make? Marinara?
The Marianas Marinara.
Oh, that's catchy.
Put some Kool-Aid in the ragu. I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness. One more question? Okay. No?
I don't. Let's see. These some folks are weighing in, telling how much they appreciate it. Some folks saying, let's see. Someone says, tell Joe 10 and Triple J and all the others to ease up on egg prices. Bruce Camacho said, Delegate Kim, can you get Trump to sign my hat?
Yeah. Give me. Make it happen.
Bruce also asked, how does AOC deal with heels? Okay. Yeah, and just a lot of stuff people liking it. There's another question that I think is a bigger topic for another time. This is for Congresswoman Flores. It's also from Ray Kittigwa. He's asking about the, hold on, it keeps jumping up here. It says, is it fair to say MPLT to take the role over indigenous lands if there's evidence that shows Carolinian Affairs is getting their hands in the cookie jar to undermine the indigenous people and their lands and break state and federal laws to steal indigenous lands?
Well, Mr. Kittigwa, I'll be introducing a bill. Actually, I'm pulling it out of committee. And the bill is tailored to take the DPL kind of corpus, right, this money that they collect on rental, which has never been done. But there were many opinions that were written by the AG, and I believe one judge actually had an opinion on this, that we need to move the money from DPL and send it over to MPLT. And back in, I guess it was 20 years between all of this and that happening, that this money has never been transmitted to DPL. But the Constitution was said it's supposed to happen. Somewhere along the line, this money stayed in DPL's operations, right, which is used now for their budget. They wanted to buy a boat. I don't know why. But, these things.
The
this
Department
excess,
of Public Lands?
Yeah. and this excess of, extravagant spending. And so we're saying that's it. No, we're going to follow what the opinion said. We're going to make it constitutionally right and move that money back to MPLT. And then from there, MPLT, now that's a different question. Now that we surgically remove the cancer, right, let's take the conversation now to MPLT. Address the indigenous part, right? What does this mean now with all of this money? And then we can treat it like its intention, which was like a Native American fund. It was supposed to be a dividend to the people for the land use, right? But that never happened. So now we're going to fix it up and give the money back to MPLT. Hopefully earmark it so that, it's not touched. And that money can be invested and the dividend be given to the indigenous people. But MPLT has its own set of, conversations and what is indigenous, right? And that's a very sensitive topic. We're still one people at the end of the day. We're all interconnected at the end of the day. I say we just consider ourselves Native and just be, the identity is I'm Carolinian, I'm Chamorro, I'm a Chamarita. But our ethnicity, we're Native Americans. That's how I would see this, right? That's my discussion. That's my debate. But I know that people are very sensitive about that, and I don't try to say that they're not indigenous, because that's how someone identifies. If you identify as a Carolinian and our Constitution says that there are two Native people, then there are two Native people. How do we design fairness and balance, right, to that? We don't know. That's something we've never tried. We've never tried it before.
Yeah.
It's always been questioned. Who's the real indigenous? Why are we going to entertain, maybe for Mr. Kirigua, he has a different sentiment, and I have to respect that.
Yeah.
Right? Of course. But I also have an opinion. My job is to figure out a balance and what that looks like, right? And we need to bring everybody to the table. And if we have to go to the kiosku down there and have that as its memorial conversation and debate about the issue, then so be it. But I think a lot of this is just pent up frustration.
Yeah.
What's owed to me, what the government has owed me this. We got land compensation that still hasn't been paid since 1980. These people are just, they've died.
Yeah.
And how are we paying that? But there's just so many things, right? But how do we do this? And then now with all of this national stuff coming along, we're held hostage. How do we take care of our people? How do you want us to do this? Because everything that was designed to help us is not there anymore. Yeah. And we don't want change. Because if we change it, right, like you said, come on, man, this is about the greater picture, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really a lot of the conversations I've been hearing about the indigenous, what is the indigenous people, who are the indigenous people, the funding that should go to MPLT so that the dividends could be given to the indigenous people. Yeah. But the conversation has been blocked every year. Yeah. You have the conversation, someone blocks it. Yeah. So it's just pent up frustration, and he has every right to be frustrated.
Yeah, man. I agree, right? And this is kind of like one of those conversations where we can agree to disagree, right? And obviously I get where Mr. Kirigua is coming from, and he's very persistent, obviously, in his position, and fine, right? Cool, man. Good for you. Right. But at the end of the day, man, I'm just not gonna be that guy who's gonna be like dissing on my Refalawash brothers and sisters, right? And pitting us against each other. We got larger problems to talk about, right? Than this, and I'm trying to rally people, man. I'm trying to rally people together. Right. Like one CNMI, you know what I mean? I don't care who you are. Let's come together. Right.
We've been going at the sales pitch of Un Marianas, Un Corazon, We've been saying this, but do we really mean it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the question now, then, right? Is do we really mean what we say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if we do, then let's do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be like this.
Yeah.
And honestly, sis, I don't think I have enough years left in my life, but I
Girl,
refuse
for real.
to just not try to make it a better CNMI, you know,
Yeah.
for everybody.
But also low key, I really look good in Marmars.
Girl, that the what do they call that? The
Ligaturtur.
Ligaturtur. Oh.
Yeah. I totally butchered that.
Girl.
Please, Auntie
I know,
Malua,
me too. I'm so
don't get mad at
sorry.
me.
But they made me some beautiful pieces, and I tell you, the first one that made us, Miss Julie from Julie Omar, beautiful thing. But that thing can fit around my waist.
Yeah.
And
It's
it
beautiful.
was falling down, and I'm going, how am I supposed to wear this? And she goes, just put it like that. And I'm thinking, but it's falling. She goes, God, just gain some weight. It'll be fine. And I was like, oh, Lord. So, but they're
Yeah.
beautiful pieces. And, that's who we are as a culture. I mean, it's our jewelry. And maybe that's the
so my
conversation we need
husband
to
and I,
have.
we've been married for what, almost 24 years, and we got a matching set
Wow.
for our wedding from my auntie Denang Suel.
Nice.
And so, we've never worn it. We're put it away. It's a family heirloom,
Yeah.
right? It's a beautiful gift. And yeah, man.
Okay, well, I guess we're coming up to our last thoughts. Miss Kim, I would love to give you your final hour, last thoughts to the people, because I know you'll be leaving soon.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
CNMI, I love you, man. And Marissa, this is a great opportunity for all of us to start having these conversations, right? And I think too often in our community, we're just trained, right? I think I shared this with you earlier, right? There's a couple of words just to wrap this up.
Yes, ma'am.
Shonganai,
Yes.
right? I think that's a gift from the Japanese, shonganai, right? Is it we just, hold it in, right? Like it is what it is almost, right? And then, from our Catholic upbringing, right? Kagay kulosmo. Sungun,
Yeah.
right? And the Americans stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? But I think that where we need to get to be able to get to where we need to be is to start having these conversations out loud and in a respectful manner, right? And so that we can find, right, a pathway moving forward that we can all agree on, right? But this notion basically, right, that you're going to shut down everybody's opinion, right? Everybody else's idea because you think you've been anointed as whatever the hell you think you're anointed to do, right? I think is ridiculous, right? This is a small community. Every single movement and action that we as leaders take have a rippling impact across the Commonwealth. And man, I have not been able to sleep because the only thing I hear every single day is people looking for jobs, people looking for help, people, worried about being able to pay the bills, businesses shutting down, and what that all means, right, for the schools. I went to Rhoda quickly just for that flight. Tinian too. Same conversations that are being had. My Tinian police officers, I think they're down to 8, right? They're down to 8. They're having to pay their own gas to patrol the freaking village and bring their own supplies like toilet paper to work because they get zero operational funds, right? Why is that their obligation? First of all, police officers in this community get paid crap. And then now they have to bring their supplies for work. But this is where we're at. We're at the bottom of the barrel. And so, this is not about stoking the fire. This is not about trying to, this is not about trying to be an agitator. This is about let's have a very honest conversation about where we're at as a Commonwealth. And only until then, until we all can agree that we are in a hole, then we can figure out how to climb out that hole.
Right.
But if we continue to operate like doop, 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 you know what I mean? Whistle while I work, which seems to be, you know what I mean? Get me some of them. Give me some of them dwarfs, man.
Right.
You know what I
Hey,
mean?
girl, come on now. Don't go there. I'm 4'11". Don't do that. Don't do that, girl. I'm 4'11". You not notice my stool? Come on now. Brad gave me a chair. I was like, oh, hell no. This microphone was like this. I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, but I'm changing my seat. Do you not understand? Like Kim rocking the 4-inch heels. But, you know, thank you so much for coming. You know, one of the things we've always mentioned, I think you and I, as women and as friends and as leaders, is that there is a clear difference between a politician and an advocate. And we are advocates.
Yeah.
The politics is secondary, doesn't even exist in our language. What we want to do is help our people, help our children, help our Commonwealth, help the business, help everyone, right? And have this greater Commonwealth, a better Commonwealth, a healthier Commonwealth, a safer Commonwealth, you know?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming and giving us some insight on the national level. I think that's important, and I hope that, you know, moving forward, our community can have those tougher conversations because we need them. And, you know, there's no room for shogunai or sunguna, right? We need to get together now for a better Marianas.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sis. Thank
Period,
you so
sis.
much. Period, sis.
As the kids say.
Period. Thanks, guys. Thank
Thanks.
you, Kim.
All right.
You'll be fine. Have confidence. Be strong. Be brave. And be open-minded.